Now, the future of women's cricket is very important, and we've got so many people that play a vital role in ensuring that the future of women's cricket is in a healthy position. Eddie Khoza was the CSA executive for domestic cricket, and Grant van Velden was the CSA head of high performance, are here with us to try and sort of pave a way and discuss a way forward in terms of the future of women's cricket. Gentlemen, thanks for your time. I know it's been a busy, long day, but it's a great pleasure to have you here. And I'm going to start with you, Eddie, in terms of, you know, the future of women's cricket. And you spoke so well about how far it's come and where it's at now and where the potential lies in terms of women's cricket and its development. Just briefly, if you can, tell us where you see women's cricket going.
I think, first of all, thanks very much for the opportunity. And I think today was one of those occasions where I normally call it a positive day-to-day experience. And especially when we reflect and having the former players in the room that played women's cricket when it was unfancied, sitting in the presence of the up-and-coming as well as the current Protea players. It was quite a humbling experience because the journey that they've walked is completely different. Yeah. And our job is more or less one of trying to look at where things are at this point in time and try and more or less earmark and say where does the future goes. Yeah. And I think we made some serious strides. I think, first of all, when we did the domestic cricket and made it professional, there was two-prong strategy here because I think from the benefits of hosting 2 World Cup events in 2023, we wanted to make young girls out there to dream because no country has ever hosted 2 World Cups back to back, and especially in the period that we hosted it. But most importantly, also run development programs at the same time that are also going to inspire the next generation. I think at the time, never one envisaged that we will get the schools cricket program going at T20 format for the girls, which actually resulted in a successful under-19 tournament that was hosted through the support of the national lotteries at the time, and with which SA20 has taken it over now, and we more or less building from it. And what gave me confidence when I look at that the women's footprint doesn't enjoy the historic footprint like the men's pathway. We almost like had to start certain things from scratch, try and inspire. And that World Cup in 2023 was a game changer for me when one of our players who represented Free State, for example, coming from a girls' school, the minute they saw her on TV, the whole school wanted to play cricket. And it just showed me to say, hey, there's power behind the television, and we need to try and get more of these games on television. But where we're going at this point in time, you can see that it's no longer just a game. Yeah. It's a career option for every young girl out there. And that's why when we enter now the 3rd edition of our domestic professional cricket structure, we just want to make sure that we continue inspiring young girls to look up into taking up cricket from a formal perspective, because it's no longer just about participation. There is a career to be made, but most importantly, when you look at the exposure of what the Proteas are getting in terms of World Cups every year, there's always going to be pressure for us to expand our pool of depth, and especially if injuries hit us. But what is very important is one cannot underestimate the value of what Hollywood bats brings, the charisma and everything, and actually repositioning this. And from the statistics that were shared by Nelson Sport, it makes me actually say, how can I get this on a public platform? Yeah. Because if you look at women's cricket, it's only been seen from a pay channel perspective. Yeah. But now, when you look at, we're contesting with Banyana, and they are more or less on a public platform, and we almost not far off from the numbers perspective. It just tells me that we're onto something big, because I will never rest until we get women's cricket commercialized and being an avenue that can inspire the next generation than what we've seen before.
Grant, we were in Malaysia together for the Under-19 World Cup. And
must be nice, eh?
Yeah.
It must be nice still, though.
Just the difference is that he flew business class and I flew economy. That's the only difference. We were together in Malaysia for the Under-19 World Cup, and there were so many inspiring stories to come from that World Cup and South Africa's performances. And if you look at the members of that squad, someone that comes to mind for me is Ntabisang Nini Kam, and I think you spoke about hubs being an important role
70%.
in terms of producing talent for provinces and of course the national sides. As head of high performance, how much work goes into making sure that those programs and those kind of talents come through to the national fore, but particularly into the provincial setups as well?
Yes, I think our hubs are doing a fantastic job, as well as our tap leads in the various areas in order to identify this talent. And then, it's then a case of how do we put the support around that talent to make them progress through the system, and flourish when they get to the international stage. So our big focus from a high performance point of view is where can we have the most influence, and how can we change the way that cricket in the women's space, which it was amateur, not that long ago, and it to suddenly say, okay, cool, now we're professional, now it's high performance. It doesn't, people just don't change like that. So it's a process. So where can we have the most influence that's going to have then long-term change? So in my previous life, I was involved with a sport that was amateur and then suddenly was high performance. It took 5 years for that team to eventually get to the point where they could say, okay, we're doing all the basics of a high performance program now. So it does take time, but you've got to start planting the seed in the right areas. That's why I think what Coach Tanesha and her team are doing in the under-19 space is fantastic, and we're trying to support that as best as possible. And I think Tanesha will also say to you guys very openly that this year's World Cup, she had the exact management team that she wanted, and that management team mirrored what the men's teams get and what the Proteas women get. It's a head coach, it's a batting coach, a bowling coach, a fielding coach, an analyst, a team doctor. It's just all the bases are covered. And that's where we can have the biggest influences in the under-19 space, because they are our future Proteas. They are future professional players. A lot of them are playing professional at the moment. But if we can start exposing them to a high-performance environment and getting them to have a high-performance mindset, slowly that will start filtering into the system, and it will then the group of girls are coming to the academy, suddenly they're more high-performance. By the time our big goal is, by the time a player steps over the boundary rope to play for the Proteas women's team for the first time, that's come through the system, they should have no worries on their shoulders that I haven't been exposed to what these people are. I haven't had a strength and conditioning coach. I haven't had my injuries rehab properly with a physio. Or I haven't worn a GPS unit on my back. It's a case of, let me step over over the boundary rope. I've done everything I can. I deserve this opportunity. Let me go and express myself. And that's what we want to try create from under 19 all the way through the system, so that when Coach Mantler gets a young player into the space, they've been exposed to everything that's expected of a professional cricketer at that level.
Sure.
Right. For me, I think just place I want to start from is sometimes we look at the problems that we have, and actually reflecting on the women's journey. It's like you said, it's only been professional for a short period of time, but the successes of it have been enormous. Do you sometimes, you've been part of this journey for some time, take stock of what actually has been achieved on the field and the opportunity of still widening the base with all the infrastructure that currently you're looking to implement at lower level to get closer to the national team?
It's a very important question when you look at that. You sometimes don't spend time in reflecting. And let me just also start with this way. And, we take things for granted. I remember, Grant, when we announced the World Cup squad in Newlands, and they were mentioning the names of the under-19 players, not knowing that Kagiso Rabada's dad was actually in the audience and admiring these under-19 players. And he quietly came and he just said, hey, if there are any of these players that require something, please don't be shy away. You reach out to the Kagiso Rabada Foundation.
That's awesome.
And I remember I went away from Newlands and said, I need to take him up on this. And a quick phone call to the manager and all that, and I realized that 3 of the players actually required full cricket equipment, running shoes and spikes. They're going to a World Cup, eh? Just remember that. Global stage. And what was quite heartwarming for me, I luckily went to Malaysia and all that. 2 of the players actually won man of the matches. And now I'm asking myself, that small gesture from the Kagiso Rabada Foundation what confidence did it actually give these players when they actually don the Protea jersey now? Because they, from an attire perspective, on and off the field, they felt like they belong. And sometimes it's one of the key issues that we undermine when we look at the developmental aspect. Because when you look at now today, you look at this game from different set of eyes. The current Proteas today have contracts, and they want more. And they feel like you can't invest lower down, and because it's only investing in them because they're more or less the face and all that, and rightfully so. And the issue which is very vital for some of us is to look at to say whatever they're achieving now, how can we sustain that? And the only way you sustain that is by creating more meaningful opportunities and grow the base. And funny enough, when we strategically re-engineered the hubs, it was never meant to address issues that we're faced with in women's cricket. It took me until probably around about 2018 when then the head coach of the women, Hilton Moreng, in 2018 said to me, you know what, based on what I see here, the hubs could probably be a solution for the female pathway. And I was like, okay, what do you mean? He says, you know what, the fact that you have a measurement criteria that allows them to play a certain amount of games, it actually guarantees them game time, and they're going to develop. And when you fast forward and you see Nini running in, opening their bowling at the World Cup, it's a heartwarming moment. I mean, all the way from Northwest, I don't think it would have been scripted in any shape or form to say she'll be at the world stage bowling against India in the final. And this is where we speak about hope. And so the issue of reflection is very critical for us because we all want good things, but the good things don't happen if the Protea, which is the main team, is not shining and leading by example. And that's why today was so significantly important, just to reflect on the strides that we've made, but also not to rest on our laurels to say we've arrived. There's still a lot of work to be done. I think what is a big challenge, there's always women conversations, and people sometimes tend to pay lip service to it, in a sense that they would like to create opportunities and they would like to invest. But when you get into conversations to say, here's an opportunity, let's get into such discussions, they don't want to put their money where their mouth is. But the issue is we shouldn't allow these players to get dejected because of that, because the next generation of cricketers will be the ones probably that will be well off, purely because they would be standing on the shoulders of the giants that are paving the way for us today.
Grant, for you, first of all, how would you describe high performance standards? And two, how are they evolving within the national and, of course, moving it forward to the domestic space?
So high performance is about winning. So that's the most important thing is winning, and how can we put some things in place in order to support winning. So for me, it's about getting the basics right. The building blocks of a high performance program need to be in place in order for us to even get close to calling us having a high performance program. So the building blocks for me are around, you've got to have a real strong sports medicine and science base in order to support the players, make sure that they're healthy, they're fit and they're strong to be able to compete. Then it's around providing them with performance enhancement initiatives to elevate their performance to another level. So that's where performance psychologists come in. Are we eating to perform? Are we eating to recover? Technology has a huge role to play in there. What technology are we using to not only enhance our players, but can we enhance the way that our coaches coach in order to get the best out of them? So we've been very fortunate that Cricket South Africa have bought into that vision around some technological support as well as some performance enhancement initiatives in order to get some really good people in the space and some really good technology. And we're starting to see the reap the rewards of that. And then the third leg for me of the kind of building blocks of a high performance program is just that holistic support for not only the players but also the coaches. How can we make them better people? And we have a role to play as Cricket South Africa, and SACA does some fantastic work in that space as well. And the relationship between SACA and us with at Cricket Services Cricket South Africa, has the relationships improved massively over the years. We're working together to try and achieve some big goals that we would like to achieve. So that for me is the foundation, and if we can start getting those things right more consistently across the program, then we'll move closer to a high performance program. We are by no means close to the finished product, and I think within high performance you never really achieve it. There's always something new, a different way of doing things, a new piece of technology that comes in. So but as long as we're making strides towards that, to try and be a little bit more high performance in the way we do things, I think we're going to move forward. It does, within our space, I think cricket, there is a mindset change that needs to, or mindset shift that needs to happen. I think Australia at the moment, if we just look in the realm of fitness and conditioning, or strength and conditioning, they have pushed the bar, the Australian women's team, so high, way above any other women's team in the world. And so it's like, okay, how can we start making strides in that space? How can we improve? How can we become more athletic? One of the building blocks of the autistic hunter is athleticism. And if we want to play like autistic hunters, according to the playing philosophy, we have to have athletes on the field. So how can we improve those building blocks to help support that? So we're making strides in that area. We're getting better. We're not perfect yet, but slowly the momentum will change. As I spoke about that team earlier, taking 5 years. It's where can we make those small improvements along the way that will have big impact, in 5 years' time, for example, where we don't need, I'll just use the conditioning line of it again, where we don't have to talk about it. It's just a thing. Because that's kind of the culture that the Australians have managed to ingrain in their game, is that we don't need to do fitness testing. We don't need to do athletic performance profiling. We do it so that if somebody gets injured, we've got maybe a marker that we can work back towards so that they can return to play safely. But we don't need to test whether a player is an athlete or not. We just know that it is, and that's the standard and the level. And we'll get there. And our Proteas women are leading the way in that. Is there work to do in that environment? Of course there is. But they're going to set the benchmark going forward. And obviously, throughout the system, we've got to strive to try and get to that level as well.
A final one, Praedi. It's a long road. It's a never-ending road. There will always be improvements along the way. I guess essentially, what is the definition of that improvement? How do we get from where we are now to a place where we can say that, the Proteas women's side are world champions? And you've said it, and you've championed it in terms of them being the first ones to win a World Cup before the men's. What is the defining thing that we can say is needed to make sure that we keep on improving along the way?
I think, like you highlight, everybody wants to associate with winning. And our family believe that if we could get the Protea women's team winning a World Cup, that will inspire players to take up bat and ball. Because the sustainability of the game is how many people you introduce into the game. And the interesting thing is that when you look at our KFC mini cricket program, we give over 120,000 kids an opportunity to play mini cricket every year. Who's coaching them? 70% of people coaching them are female. But now, and also you find that 40% of the people that are playing at that levels are girls. But they don't transition into hardball, purely because of the challenges of access to infrastructure, the basic issues of equipment, and cricket by its way is normally expensive. And that's why it's very important for us to not kill off the dreams of and the aspiration of young players because of price. We have to find sophisticated ways of saying now, how do we get them to actually continue playing? And the issue which is very vital for me when we say we would have arrived, is not only just about the World Cup trophy. It's only about as well where kids, when they join at the primary school, they see cricket as an option, as a extramural activity, because that for me would mean that we've changed the landscape, because things are happening automatically in that sense.
As a career path.
Correct. And that's why the repositioning of the Proteas from a world events, the domestic game being aspirational and creating a source of income for the current players. And just looking at it now that we have under 19 World Cups, it's something that was not there. And this was like the second edition. So, I mean, it just shows you that now those things are no longer just discussions, they are happening. And I think last year on my part is just to make sure that when, if we could have something at primary school level that will allow players to actually aspire and play more. Because the one thing I picked up is that there's younger and younger players. When you look at the under 16 age group that comes to the national tournaments, you find that predominantly most of them will be like 14 years old. And some of them we find that they're 13 and they want to go. We said, no, they're still at primary school. We have regulations to protect. And then the scary part is when you get to some of the, especially in our Division 2 of the women's setup, you find that there's a good 15-year-old who's dominating club cricket, is dominating girls cricket at schools, and wants to go into a national tournament or play in the national league. And it's quite sad sometimes to say to that young talent to say, hey, regulation-wise and everything else, please, let's just make sure. Because, you know, safeguarding is what actually hits us now than before. Because, you know, people only used to worry about bat and ball and the coaching and we're going on tour and all that. And now we have to look after so much. And I mean, in the trip that you spoke to about Malaysia, Grant hasn't mentioned, for example, every under-19 tour that we take, we have to take an educator with. Because kids cannot fall behind. Correct. And because we firmly believe that better, well-rounded individuals make better proteas. And if we're not sincere about schooling, there's then definitely not going to be the result that we're looking at.
Probably last one for me. I mean, we talk about in order to sustain our national teams, we have to have a really good domestic system that supports it, right? But when it comes to resources, of course, I mean, South Africa in recent years have got Division 1, Division 2. I mean, there's a conversation that was started inside the room there where in terms of resources, spreading the resources, ensuring that Division 1 and Division 2 gets an adequate support structure as you would in Division 1. In terms of that now, that gap, where are we with regards to making sure that that base grows together? It's not just a Division 1 getting all the support, Division 2 also gets some support, and I know you did mention, Brady, in terms of resources being a key part of that, but where are we with regards to that gap? Is it widening or is it coming closer?
The biggest issue is the building blocks here, and I'm proud to say now when you look at the support structure in terms of Division 1 and Division 2, we contribute to the salaries of those people that are driving those programs. So from a Division 1 perspective, we more or less looking at 4 head costs in terms of the head coach, assistant coach, the SNC, as well as the physio. And then when it comes to Division 2, we're looking after the head coach, because the issue which is very vital, we need to continue that momentum. And I remember when we were discussing around establishing a professional league, because remember, we come from an era where the guys were used to play on region, and that's where it ended. And then part of the commitment we made as Cricket South Africa was to say we need to look at other ways of saying how can we give more game time. And when I was in there, I was almost, when you listen to Sune asking for more games for the national players and the Division 1 teams with the under-19s, I was like, hey, we've just come back now from a cricket week in Bloemfontein. Remember, that was also part of the additional games. So we also find creative ways. So like our Division 2 teams, normally they would have played 5 50-over matches in a season and 5 T20 matches. But we stretched that to 10. But the other 5 are played in the form of a cricket week because of the cost of travel and everything. So we are trying to find other ways. But the issues which is very interesting for me is that when I go around the country, the conversations are slightly different. The teams have additional logos than what it was there before, which means that the value proposition seems to be hitting home somewhere. Now, if we can, we have a long way to go to actually equalize issues and create, but by design, if we could probably look at a way of making sure that the promotion relegation works for us in terms of making sure that people don't rest in their laurels, because sometimes comfort zone is a big thing. We mustn't forget that we're in transition of trying to build professionalism. And the one thing which is of significance for me is that when you look at the teams that are dominating the women's Division 1, they're coached by female, and they are level 4 qualified. That to me, and they're former players. And so now when I look at our landscape in detail, I'm starting to see more and more presence of former players, even in the male space, because we've just had the schools in Daba. We had 54 schools there. When I look at in the room, you see the likes of the Nanti Haywards and all that are actually plowing back into the game. When you look at our domestic professional men side of things, you look at the youth in terms of coaching-wise. When I say youth, in terms of they're not experienced. It's not like in the past where you would have had people that have an enormous experience. So there's a window of opportunity for us to, while we're growing the sport, but also to empower people that are driving the sport. Hence, it's a lot easier for us sometimes to push our philosophy. But lastly, is just to say now, this issue of Division 2, it's quite interesting that, and I look at it from a statistics perspective. The players that have performed in the last 2 editions in Division 2, the following year got a contract. So it's almost like becoming a direct feeder into the Division 1 teams. And I cannot allow that to just happen because that's a naturalization. But the issue which is very vital, you have to admire the work that gets done by the Division 2 teams. People are not aware, for example, in Limpopo. I mean, we had a player there that nearly made the SA Under-19 girls squad that went to Malaysia. And when we were in Parliament, actually, when we were asked to say, do you identify players in rural areas? I had to show them a video of this player running in the dusty street areas of Guyana, for example, to say if we could go to Guyana, where there's no nets or anything, and manage to identify a Chef Lamkhari, for example, and was going all the way to the verge of making the Protea Under-19 side. It just tells you the potential that we have as a country. But the issues which are very vital is that when people don't realize is that now there's deliberate intent. As much as we're not playing enough in Division 2, but you have to also admire the investment that gets made by our members. So like in Limpopo, for example, people are not aware that in the Under-19 team that went to the national tournament back in 2023, the coach identified those players as probably those that he needs to invest in. They actually, when you fast forward, they actually staying in the same accommodation because of the traveling distance. And they practice every day. And when I go there and I look at the progress that they're making, I wouldn't be surprised in 2 years' time and all that they will start knocking in the door of progress. But the nicest thing that is done as well is that he found institutions that partnered with them. So they're not just playing cricket, but they're also studying and all that, because we need well-rounded people. But we just need to make sure that we invest a little bit more. And I will be selfish of me not to commend the boards of CSA and the previous boards, because some of the things, if you had to wait for sponsors to come in and you don't take it from your coffers and invest, you will never appetize people to invest in the game.
Eddie Khoza, thanks for your time. Grant van Velden, thanks for your time. Really appreciate it. Lots of work to still do. So all the best for that. And hopefully when we sit in these spaces again, maybe next year in this same event, we've made a lot of progress within a year, and we've seen so many, great youngsters coming into the national fold. So all the best with all of that work.
Thanks.
Thanks for the opportunity. Is this your interview for the year?
He's already running away from
No, I won't run away. The thing is that sometimes what we don't appreciate is just the conversations. Actually, that makes us reflect. And one thing I must appreciate is the two of you. Because the work that gets played by people normally like yourselves or the journalists and all that is the ones that hold administrators like myself accountable. Because the issue is very vital, is that I could say something today. You'll be able to remind me to say, you did make this promise, how far have you made and all that. And that's why it's very important for us to be intentional in everything that we do.
All the best for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.